Hey guys, so today we're going to go through the lesson for SE Day 5. I am expecting you to go through the whole thing, which is why you're watching this video. I'm basically teaching it as if I was there, okay? Except now you guys don't really have the opportunity to ask me questions. However, you have the opportunity to slow me down. So if you feel like I'm going too fast, you can pause the video, write things down, process them, rewind if you need to, okay? So we're going to go through everything. We're going to go through quite a few problems. Your warm-up is in Euphoria, so please complete the warm-up before you actually move on for this next part, okay? Just a reminder, your 6 weeks exam grades are in. Retake your 6 weeks on Friday, so that's tomorrow. Phones need to be up every single day for extra credit. Obviously, I'm not there today, so I can't keep track of that, but please do it when I get back. And then you can check your grades on the wall right next to your phones if you'd like to, okay? If you're going to do me a favor, make sure that your notes have your title. Okay, so you're going to write your title here, but we'll write that in a second. We're going to go through the solving steps for elimination, and then you'll do an activity, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at our title for today. If you'll go ahead and do me a favor, write your first and last name. The topic is SE Day 5, solving systems using elimination. Okay, hopefully you guys can fit it all in the one space. I just can't because I write really big, but and then of course please make sure that you write the date and your class period, whichever that may be, whether you're watching this first, second, third, fourth, fifth. I don't have fifth, but sixth, seventh, eighth. Okay, we're gonna start with sorry, we're gonna start with the steps of solving by elimination. Please make sure that you either use a highlighter or something else to underline, circle, that kind of thing. Starting with step 1, line up the equations. Okay, what that means is we want to put the x's on top of each other, so something like this, and the y's, and then the equal signs, and then the numbers. Okay, the coefficients, so whatever coefficients are in front don't matter as long as these are lined up. Okay, step 2, multiply. I'm going to go ahead and highlight or underline or circle because that's a mathematical term. Multiply one or both equations. Okay, both is pretty important, so I'm going to highlight both equations by a number to result in a variable with the same coefficient. Okay, coefficient is 100% a mathematical term. Okay, and then step 3, we're going to add or subtract. That's 2 mathematical terms. The equations to eliminate. Okay, eliminate the variable, or this variable, a specific variable. Okay, you're going to, of course, solve for the remaining variable. And then last but not least, step 5, substitute your answer from step 4 into either original equation, which is pretty similar to substitution, to find the other variable. Okay, we're going to see what that actually looks like. Okay, and then we'll go from there through all the steps. So like I said, step 1 is to line up the equations, meaning that you want the x's, the y's, and the values to be all lined up. If you notice for number 1, that is the case. The same for number 2. For 3, 4, 5, and 6. And we'll take a look at 5 and 6 a little bit later. Okay. So like I said, here's where we're starting. Okay, so step 1's pretty much done for us in all of them. Next, it says multiply one or both equations by a number to result in a variable with the same coefficient. Okay, one thing that I want us to note is we want it to have opposite signs. Okay, the reason that is because we want to be able to eliminate a variable And the only way we can eliminate it is if they are opposite signs. For example, if this x was negative and I were to add them down, x minus x would be equal to 0. These would cancel out, and all I would have to work with are my y values. Okay, so that is the goal. We want the same coefficient, because if this is 2 and this is minus x, well, that's just going to equal 1x. But I want to completely eliminate it. So it has to have the same coefficient. It doesn't matter the number. For example, this one can be 7 and this one can be 7. But because they're opposite signs, these would cancel out and I would just bring down the x's. Okay, so let's go ahead and work through that. If you notice, we have two variables to work with. These two variables, or sorry, the y's, have opposite signs already. However, this y would also need a 7. Okay, so that means that I would have to multiply this entire equation by 7. So 7 times x, and then 7 times this y here, and then 7 times negative 7. That's a lot of work, okay? Whereas these x's already have the same coefficient, right? They both have a 1 in the front. So all I really have to do is change the signs of one of the equations. So I think that that's really what we should do, okay? So I'm going to work with the bottom equation. However, if you chose this top one, that's completely fine. It works no matter what. It's just based off of preference. I think this one's going to be a little bit easier to work with, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and multiply the entire equation by a negative 1. Okay, that is just going to make the sign in the front a negative. It will not change anything else, which is why I'm using 1. Okay, so a negative times a positive will give me a negative x. A negative times a negative will give me a positive y. And a negative 1 times a negative 7 will equal a positive 7. Okay, so now that I have this new equation, okay, I'm going to rewrite the top equation, x plus 7y equals 17. Make sure that these are lined up. And then I'm literally just going to add them, okay? So x minus x will equal to 0. That'll cancel out completely. I have 1 plus 7 will equal 8y. And 7 plus 17 will leave me with 24. Okay, notice now I have one variable that I have to worry about. All I have to do is divide both sides by 8. And now I have y equals 3. Okay, so now I have one of my variables. I obviously need to find the x value. So what I can do is I can plug 3 back into one of the two equations. It doesn't matter which one. Just like when we do substitution, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to choose either one. I think this one looks a little bit easier because we don't have any number in front of y. So I'm going to go ahead and plug 3 in for y. Okay. I'm going to add 3 on both sides to get rid of that 3. That leaves me with x equals negative 4. And then, of course, you want to write it as a point. So I'm going to write this as negative 4, comma 3. And then, of course, box your answer. All right. We're going to go ahead and take a look at number 2. This is our next one, okay? Here we are looking, again, same thing. Line up the x and the y's. X's are lined up, y's are lined up, and our numbers are lined up, okay? Once we have that, we're going to multiply one or both equations by a number to make sure that they have same coefficient, right? That's the number in the front. Opposite signs, okay? So if you notice, the 3 and the 5, not the same coefficient, nor are they different signs. They're the same sign. They're both positive. So that's nowhere near what I want. So we're going to take a look at the y just to check. I have a positive 2 and a negative 2, which works really well because I have the same coefficient and opposite signs. That's exactly what I want. So I don't even have to do any of that work. All I have to do is combine. So I'm going to go ahead and add down. 3 plus 5 will equal 8x. Okay. 2 minus 2, that cancels out perfectly, which is exactly what I wanted. I got rid of one variable. And then I'm going to add 22 plus 42, which is just going to give me 64. All right. Then, of course, again, we're dividing both sides by 8 because 8 is being multiplied by x. So I'm going to undo multiplication. X will be equal to 8. Okay. Now, we found our x value. We just need to find our y value. So we're going to plug it into one of the two equations. This one looks like it has smaller numbers, right? This 5 is a little bigger. The 42 is a lot to deal with. So I'm going to use the top equation. Everywhere I see an x, I'm going to put an 8. Distribute here. 3 times 8 is equal to 24. Okay, this 24 is being added to the 2y, so I'm going to go ahead and subtract 24 on both sides. That leaves me with 2y equals negative 2. Then I'm, of course, going to divide both sides by 2. Leaves me with y equals negative 1. Okay, once you have both values, you're, of course, again going to write it as a point. And you're good to go. Not too bad. Okay, hopefully you guys are kind of getting the hang of it. We're going to go ahead and take a look at just a few more, maybe just 3 and 4, and then I'm going to have you guys rewrite 5 and 6 and try to figure those out on your own. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at 3. So first thing we're going to check, are they lined up? X, X, Y, Y, number, number, right? Okay, from there, we're going to look at the coefficients. I have 4 and 1, okay? Different coefficients, same sign. That's not what I want. I want same coefficient, opposite sign, okay? Now I'm going to look at the y coefficients. So I have a negative and a positive, so that checks off one thing, but I need the same coefficient. I have a 9 and a 5, okay? So here's the thing. We have to multiply one or both equations by a number to ensure that they are same coefficient, opposite signs. We can do one of two things. Two things, okay? We can multiply this equation by a negative 4, because if I do that, negative 4 times x will give me negative 4x, and that way they would be same coefficient, opposite sign. Okay, that's option 1. Option 2, we would multiply this equation by 5 and this one by 9. Okay, that way they have the same coefficient, opposite sign. Now, when you're looking at it in a big picture, you're going to want to go with the simplest option. If I have to change both equations, that is not a good option. Okay, whereas if I just have to change this equation, right, because all I need this number to have is negative 4, then I need to go with that simpler option. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply this entire equation by negative 4. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Distribute to everything. That includes the other side of the equal sign. I'm left with negative 4x minus 20y equals negative 16. Okay, now I'm going to rewrite the top equation right below so that way I can compare, make sure everything looks good and the way I want it to look. Okay, these x's and y's are aligned. Same coefficient, opposite sign. That's exactly what I wanted. So I'm going to go ahead and continue and add straight down. Okay, negative 4x plus positive 4x, that's going to just cancel out, which is what I wanted. That's exactly why I did that. Negative 20 minus 9 is negative 29y. Okay, and negative 16 minus 42 is going to be negative 58. Okay. Last thing I'm going to do, divide both sides by negative 29. Go ahead and take a second. Use your calculators to determine negative 58 divided by negative 29. You should get y equals 2. Okay. Now again, we're going to use the y value to find the x value. We can use either of the two equations. I'm going to use the second one because it's a little bit simpler. I'm going to plug 2 in for y. 5 times 2 is 10. So I got x plus 10 equals 4. I'm going to subtract both sides by 10. That leaves me with x equals negative 6. Please do not forget to write your write your answer as a point, because remember, it is a solution to the two equations. All right, we're on our last one. Okay, so at 7x minus 6y. Okay, so first thing, are they aligned? They look aligned, we're good to go. The second thing is we have to look at the coefficients. Again, we are looking for the same coefficient, the same number, but different signs. I'm going to keep repeating it just to make sure that we understand everything. Okay, so I'm going to look at the coefficient for x first. I have a 7 and a 2. Those are pretty much completely different, and they have the same sign. I would have to change both equations. Okay, taking a look at this one, right? I have a 6 and a 3. Okay, different coefficient, same sign. That's not what I want either. However, I have to look at the bigger picture again. Okay, so I can do one of two things, right? Option 1, I multiply this equation and this equation by a number, so that way they have the same coefficient, opposite sign. So I can multiply this one by 2, and I can multiply this one by negative 7, so it had a negative 14. Okay, that way they could cancel out. Or, if you notice, I could multiply 3 by 2 to give me 6. That would make my life a lot easier than having to multiply both equations. Okay, but notice that they're both the same sign. So what I'll do is I'll multiply by a negative 2. That way it'll change the sign and I'll get a 6. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and multiply by negative 2. I'm going to get negative 4x, positive 6y, and a positive 26. Okay, then again, I'm going to rewrite my first equation, make sure everything lines up the way I want it to. Negative 53. Okay. And then I'm going to, of course, add down like I need it to. Okay, so negative 4x plus 7x is going to be 3x. Okay. 6, the y's should cancel out. And then here, I'm going to get negative 27. Okay. Make sure you use your calculator to calculate this if you're not 100% sure. Last step, I'm going to divide both sides by 3, and x will be equal to negative 9. Okay, but I'm not quite done. I actually have to finish off with that y. I can do either the first or the second equation. We've been doing the second equation a lot, so I'm going to go ahead and use the first one, even though it might be a little bit more difficult. So negative 9 minus 6y equals negative 53, right? 7 times 9, negative 9, is going to be negative 63. Okay, I'm going to add 63 on both sides. It's going to leave me with 10. And then I'm going to divide by negative 6 on both sides. Now, it's 100% okay for us to get a fraction. You, of course, have to simplify the fraction. So I'm going to divide both by 2. It'll leave me with negative 5/3. Okay? Don't forget to, of course, write this as a point and box your answer because we all have great math manners here. Okay? Now that you finished the video, I want you to do me one last favor. I need you to write down these 2 problems. Go ahead and pause the video because I want to continue. Don't want to waste too much time. But go ahead and write down the 2 problems. You're going to replace your 5 and 6 with these 2. It'll make your life a little bit easier because the other ones are a little bit tough. Okay. The last thing I want you to do is make sure that you follow these instructions. Go ahead and take a sec to pause the video. Take a screenshot with your phone, with something, so that way you know the steps to completing your activity. Your activity can be found in Schoology along with this video, so you'll see it. Okay, please follow the instructions. Email me if you have questions. I will do my best to answer accordingly and when you need me. But they both need to be done, including the notes. Okay, so hope you have a wonderful day. I will see you tomorrow when I get back.